When they reached their destination, what Bodan saw nearly took his breath away. A glittering wall that depicted ancient tales of heroes and paragons. Elves, dwarves, dragons, and creatures Bodan could not name brought to life in a mosaic of gold and jewels. Bodan took a torch and walked to the wall, trying to gain a better understanding of its scale. When an old cave-in halted his progress, he turned around, and that was when he saw the boy, a dwarven child about 5 years old. From what we can say about Sandal is only from Bodan. According to World of Thedas Volume 2, Sandal was found in the outskirts of Orzammar. I dropped my torch. I thought he was a ghoul or a rock wraith or something worse. But no, it was just a small boy. Hair pale like marble, clear blue eyes, no blight to be seen in him at all. "What are you doing here, boy?" I asked. He didn't reply, just stood there, calm as anything, and he hears something, points at me, points at the dropped torch, and says, "They're coming." That's when I heard it, the darkspawn screech. I imagine they smell fresh blood. He just stands there half smiling, so I pick him up, so light he was back then. I pick him up, and I just run. Sandal was discovered by Bodan when he appeared to be around 5 years old. He was standing next to a dazzling wall that had depictions of all kinds of mythical creatures, such as heroes and paragons that all belonged to Thedas. The enamored diamonds and gold that surrounded the wall gave it life. There isn't much to show here other than that the fact that, knowing that paragons existed on the wall, one can only infer that this mosaic was made at a time when paragons actually existed. According to records, the earliest paragons lived as far back as Edryn Stonehammer's time. Edryn Stonehammer, the ruler, invents the term paragon, which is used to refer to the pinnacle of dwarven culture's elite. The greatest fighters from these provings were chosen to become the first of Orzammar's paragons, which was first documented in 1170 Ancient. As a result, we can rule out that the notion that this mosaic was constructed after the Veil, assuming it was made close to or after the Ancient era. However, that theory of its creation before the Veil still has some merit because it shows some creatures that are unlike anything we have seen or heard of in Thedas. I want to compare this told mosaic to the ones we can collect in Dragon Age Inquisition, but I really believe that this mosaic was way better in craft, and I firmly feel that they are not even close to the plain mosaics we carry back to Skyhold in terms of the construction quality. So who actually crafted this? Well, until a 5-year-old who can produce a work of art like Bodan stated, I don't think we can conclude it was Sandal. But enough about the mosaic. I must now satisfy my curiosity about how a 5-year-old might have survived that long in a place where darkspawn were proliferating while remaining uncorrupted by the blight. There must be a reason for this, and the only thing we have to rely on is what we learned from Dragon Age 2. Magical component and bloodline. It is obvious that Sandal Feddic carries the magical gene within his blood. Dwarves, in contrast to other races, do not instantly enter the Fade since they do not dream and are not gifted with magical abilities. However, Sandal is standing in front of the skeletal remains of several darkspawn, and what appears to be some type of frozen enchantment that is keeping the ogre intact when Hawk visits the primeval Tig in 931 Dragon. Of course, Sandal offers Hawk a rune referencing how he killed the darkspawn, but he says that he did not use enchantment to kill the ogre.
Not enchantment.
Which once again demonstrates Sandal's innate ability to use magic. But how is this possible? We can only presume that Sandal is most likely comparable to Volta, who links to a Titan in the Descent DLC from Inquisition. It is quite interesting to find some theories from fans stating that there are codices within the Descent DLC that could reference Sandal as well. The Gates of Segramar were a series of 4 notes that can be obtained by unlocking the 4 gates in the Darkspawn Warrens. The codex kind of explains a mystery that could lean onto Sandal's partial identity. I could not discern its true pattern until I stood in the Fade and gazed down upon the vast, malevolent engraving. I only wish it had not cost you, my only child. I could not build the locked barriers that would carve the marks and break the sigil. You alone could save us all, but only by destroying yourself, and I let you do it. Forgive me. It is speculated that the phrase "my only child" in the message may refer to a child who was abandoned by a mage within the Deep Roads. Again, this is a fan theory, and I personally interpret this codex as maybe referencing to a Titan who's speaking to a dwarf as their child, but it is interesting to cling onto this since there is a strong likelihood that Sandal is a rare half-dwarf. As I explained in my Dwarven Secrets video, Sandal is rumored to be a half-dwarf based on the conversation between two Carta dwarves in Dragon Age 2 Legacy DLC. Sandal is not half-human based on how he's portrayed and his height, because half-dwarves who are born to humans are taller than dwarves, but shorter than humans. The more plausible scenario is that he was created from an elven female or even male mage. We may also conclude that Sandal Feddic, like Alistair Theron, is a bastard with the royal bloodline to King Iduken based on the timing of when Bodan discovered Sandal. Either a mage arrived in Orzammar, and the easiest instance could be a female warden of an elven race. He would have dismissed her from his court though, due to the possibility that the legitimacy of the king may be in jeopardy due to this bastard child. It doesn't seem too far off and makes sense in terms of timing, although there isn't much evidence King Iduken had previous adulterous affairs. But it is still a cool result because Sandal would now be Trian's, Balin's, and the dwarf noble's half-brother, or at least linked to them in some manner. But in all honesty, Sandal being a half-dwarf is the possible case of his magical component. Prophecy and dreams. Sandal seems to have some insight to the future, and whether the writers are entirely taking him seriously or not, the majority of fans seem to think Sandal has the ability to prophesy based on his comments on how Thedas will be modified in the future.
One day the magic will come back. All of it. Everyone will be just like they were. The shadows will part, and the skies will open wide. When he rises, everyone will see.
And only a few individuals, like Flemeth and a few others, appear to possess the gift of prophecy. All of these characters could have a prehistoric understanding of the old gods, or perhaps even the Avaneris, as well as having access to their primordial power. Although it is a stretch, it is also logical that this knowledge originates from elsewhere. The other element to having this knowledge of the future may be from the Titans, but we also know very little about them as well. What we do know for sure, though, is that Sandal is referencing to the destruction of the Veil and the Dreadwolf's rise to action. So how was it that he could know that was possible? And of course, Sandal makes a brief appearance in the Trespasser DLC's Vir de Thara, which leads me to believe that either he collaborated with the Dreadwolf or the Qunari kidnapped Sandal, or given how enigmatic Sandal is, that he was merely passing some time in this shattered library. Sandal also has the component to dream. He states in Dragon Age 2, Sandal mentions that an old lady visits him at night, which many fans suspect that has to be Flemeth. With his extensive knowledge and talent for enchantment through lyrium, it still clings to the idea that perhaps Sandal does possess some kind of old power. We may also add another factor to this, though, which might actually explain his demeanor. Sandal could have dreams and magic due to lyrium poisoning. Now hear me out. Knowing his demeanor and lack of words, it leads me to look at two other references on why this might be true. First, like the Tranquil, who have been branded by lyrium, have to be almost overdosed with lyrium to become even tranquil. It's sad, but Sandal and the Tranquil kind of have a similar demeanor. Sandal, of course, is not totally tranquil, but Tranquils are also known to have a knack for mining lyrium and even making enchantments as well. The second example comes from Fenris, who was also known to experience the negative effects of lyrium poisoning as well, most notably losing all his memory to his prior life due to it. Sandal could have been poisoned with lyrium as a child or perhaps even during childbirth, in which case his current temperament could be a result of the lyrium poisoning's after effects. Although dwarves are known to be somewhat resistant to lyrium poisoning, if Sandal is indeed a half-dwarf, this would also account for his bloodline's lack of resistance as well. However, Sandal may be simply who he is, and that's honestly okay. There's nothing wrong with that, and I adore Sandal exactly the way he is. True identity. Here is where we can actually discuss Sandal's true identity. Although I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, the Dragon Age writers claim that Sandal was only intended to be a tiny joke for the devs to make rather than something remarkable. But after 2 Dragon Age games, it appears BioWare wants to give this character additional depth, so let's get started. Old God Baby. The only analogy we can link to is with Kieran, the old god child of Morrigan. Although Kieran and Sandal may be linked together, it has been a while since Thedas actually had a blight. The 4th blight began way back in 512 Exalted, which is a total of 400 years later to the Dragon Age. The 4th blight had the old god Androl as well, who is a god who represented slaves and of the Tevinter system of slavery itself. So in my honest opinion, Androl is not likely the soul attached to Sandal. There's just no characteristics to match him, and if there was, that would be highly awkward. However, there is the Second Blight, a conflict that began in 1.5 Divine and nearly lasted 90 years. This is the closest thing Sandal could be compared to. According to the Chant of Light, the old god Zazakel, also known as the Madman of Chaos. And since a warden was said to have killed Zazakel, we know from Dragon Age Origins that a warden is killed when the archdemon is killed, and there was no dark ritual used at that time. Sandal may be closely related to Zazakel, as evidenced by the fact that Bodan's life swiftly devolved into chaos after taking Sandal in. After a noble house accused Bodan of stealing their family's handmade bracers, when in reality Bodan accidentally found them, Bodan was compelled to flee to the surface to avoid their fury. Bodan was imprisoned and only released after he persuaded the guards to let him go by offering them half of his fortune. So this tale may simply be the product of a regular dwarven feud, or maybe just poor luck, but it is certainly chaotic and may lead some fans to conclude that when he took Sandal in, it caused Bodan's life to become chaotic. And in order to explain how an old god who has been extinct for over 1,000 years may suddenly appear to a living being, Flemeth's life is a logical place to start. According to Flemeth, a wisp of an ancient being appeared to her and gave her what she asked for and more. What we may infer is that whether or not a warden kills an old god, there may still be a part of that old god searching for their ideal host like a wisp. This search may take 100 or even 1,000 years, but it is undoubtedly conceivable within the world of Thedas. The Maker. Yep, the Maker is truly Sandal. Okay, it appears that many veterans often make jokes about this for the new Dragon Age fans who want to dive into the lore, but I'm sorry to break it to you. This is not true. And if it were true, the writers could have only done it through fan service. Since the Maker is the pinnacle of faith in the Thedosian world, the developers claim that the Maker can never be proven. We frequently associate characters with the importance with the Maker mostly because he's also an intriguing character. Nonetheless, the Maker has no identity, and Sandal being the Maker is now only a fandom joke. Pure Dwarf. Connected to a Titan dwarf, whatever you may call it, this will probably be the closest link to Sandal's true identity. Sandal, like Volta, both have the magical component as a dwarf and perhaps the ancient knowledge and even the proficiency of lyrium due to being connected to a Titan. And it is even feasible that Sandal is connected to a slumbering or even sundered Titan. Fortunately for Volta, the Titan struck her mostly as a result of the breach waking it up and disturbing it. It would be interesting to find out whether Sandal is related to the same one. If so, Sandal may now be capable of more than what he was originally shown as, but the authors really have the last say at this point. Khal Sharok, Dwarf. Bodan portrays Sandal as being quite pale when he is first discovered. Khal Sharok dwarves are also said to be paler than the typical Orzammar dwarves as well, as shown from World of Thedas Volume 1. And throughout the ancient dwarven history, Khal Sharok was also known to be sealed after the threat of the First Blight. So Sandal may be linked to a Khal Sharok dwarf, and as a result may possess different knowledge than the dwarves of Orzammar. Again, it's a reach, but it's not completely unimaginable. If Sandal appears in Dragon Age Dreadwolf, might he possibly have arrived in Khal Sharok through an alluvion? I don't really know, and perhaps I should stop talking since I could be giving away too many excellent writing ideas for BioWare to get him back in, but let's move on. And all we can do at this point is be patient and wait until the release of Dragon Age Dreadwolf to see whether if any of these predictions can come true. For all we know, Sandal was created as a joke and will remain that way by the creators. Because of this, the mystery surrounding his identity is finally resolved. The writers purposefully left him unfinished so that they could eventually include him as a significant character if the need arises. What do you believe Sandal is? Or just comment
Enchantment!
I don't know, just do anything at this point. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.